Thank you very much, Maxime, and thank you, Paul. My name is Andrew Lawton. It's my great privilege to be the moderator for this evening's discussion. And I will say we're miles ahead of where we were at the last conference, because I actually knew I was doing it this time. Unlike last time where I was, had 3 bites of my steak in, and Danny said, "Hey, what are you doing in 15 minutes?" And then I was moderated. Although by all accounts, it worked out well. So perhaps preparation's the enemy of success. If you're watching virtually, I am keeping an eye on the chat, so do feel free to post some questions if you'd like to get them in. We won't get to all of them, but we'll try to have as wide-ranging a discussion we can with Paul and Maxime. I want to start with you on this, Paul, because that result from the referendum, by a lot of accounts, is a success. 58, 59, 60% likely when all is said and done. That question, though, was on what I think a lot of people would say is just dipping the toe in the water on Alberta independence, just dealing with equalization. What makes you think there's a mandate for what is a rather radical proposal that you're pushing relative to equalization, when even then only 60% were prepared to go so far as to say, we want to change the Constitution to get rid of equalization?
Well, first of all, Andrew, I'd like to say there's a lot of cynicism when it comes to politics and political parties, and many Albertans are frustrated and kind of hold their nose and vote. The real mandate will come in 2023 when they elect a Wild Rose Independence Party to act on these things. But the other thing too is that most Albertans realize and understand that this was a sham game, that this is the Wizard of Oz standing behind there, the big voice, but it means nothing. Even if we voted 100% to eliminate the equalization program, we know that there's going to be no results from it. Ottawa's not going to want to change. The other provinces aren't going to want to change. And so why go out and participate and engage like it was something meaningful and was going to change the world, or especially change the deal for Alberta, when in fact they know that it won't?
Your rhetoric on sovereignty has gotten, I think, a lot harder, and I don't mean that in a negative way, since when we spoke even 6 months ago. And it sounds, and I could be misreading it, like you're more pessimistic about federalism than you were even half a year ago. Is that an accurate read? And if so, what's caused that change?
Well, I guess I'd have to say the first cause is realizing what we spend, another $500 billion in a year. I mean, Ottawa's out of control. As Maxime talks about, the economic trap. I mean, Alberta's the enabler for many of the provinces across Canada, and it's time to say no. But the fact of the matter is, the animosity that our Prime Minister has towards Albertans and our industry is very well known. And it's not that he wants to hold us back or anything. He wants to undermine us. He wants Alberta to be a have-not province. And 2 years ago, 3 years ago, you could say, maybe we could pay off the debt. Maybe Canada could be saved. But it's a sinking ship now. $1.3 trillion in debt. And then there's other unfunded liabilities that go on. And we need to realize, much like on the airplane, is that you worry about yourself. You put on your seatbelt, you put on your oxygen mask. Ottawa will suck every bit of life out of Alberta to we're a have-not province. And there's no reason for us to stick around and go down with the ship. So it's our only option at this point to survival. And the question is can Alberta survive, or is Ottawa going to win? And the only survival is a vote for independence, vote for the Wild Rose independence.
I'll go next to Maxime. And by the way, Maxime, I should say Ron in the chat says you should get around Trudeau's travel restrictions by just flying to Alberta now and moving here. So that is one option, and everyone in the room seems to be happy with that.
About moving.
You spent a lot of the campaign in Alberta. You were here. In fact, when I was covering your campaign, I had been, just to tout independent media, the only journalist to follow Maxime Bernier's tour for a portion of the campaign. Because as Maxime has said, a lot of the media didn't really pay attention until the very end. But you were getting a lot of support here. Where do you think the future of the PPC is? Do you think it's a national party, or do you think it's a party that has to pick and choose where those strong spots are and focus and redouble efforts specifically there, which could be right here in Alberta?
Yes, you have a point. We are a national party. We did very well in Alberta for sure. In Ontario also. In New Brunswick, not also good. So we are a national party, but I believe that the strongest region for us is Western Canada. And that's why I said to our members a couple of days ago, when they were asking me the question about my seat in Beauce, I wasn't able to win back my seat in my former riding in Beauce. So what I will do at the next election, I believe that, yes, I'm serious. I will have to move. And I think I'll do that maybe a year before the election and try to find the best riding for me to be elected. Because the next phase of the PPC, we had 5% of the vote and we grow our party. We had more support. And the next phase will be at the next time to have more support, grow our percentage of the vote, but having candidates elected, starting by the leader. So I will look at the ridings, where are the best riding for me to be elected. And I believe that I will run in that riding. So that being said, yes, Western Canada and also Ontario, it's Southern Ontario and Southern Ontario near Niagara Falls. It's very strong for us. We had a lot of support. Some of our candidates had 15%, 18%. In Alberta, a lot of them had 12%, 15%, 16%. So these two regions, I think, are very good for us. And I believe that we'll be able to have candidates elected next time.
When people were asking you in Alberta about the Maverick Party, which was, of course, the federal Alberta Independence Party, you were saying that they were not the best way to advance a lot of the things that Albertans care about. And you specifically took aim at their plan that really put a lot of emphasis on the Triple E Senate. And I know a lot of people have pointed out that despite you sort of downplaying the Triple E Senate, and I've heard you do it at past Freedom Talks, you then ran Senate candidates. So explain that. If you don't think this is the vehicle, why go into that election?
Yeah, first of all, we don't want the Senate to be a stronger institution. And that's the proposal of the Maverick Party. The Maverick Party wants the Senate to be a stronger institution, more credible institution with senators that would be elected. And like I said, I'm against that because it's not good for Alberta. You know, the majority of the senators will come from have-not provinces. And I don't believe that they will vote to change the equalization formula. So that being said, because it will be equal also. So all the have-not provinces will have 40% of the seat. You had Quebec and Manitoba, and you have 60% of the seat with have-not provinces. So we decided to run candidates for the Senate election because we believe that it will be a way for us to, if one of our candidates win, it would be a way for us to be in Parliament. And I think that's a nice opportunity also. But don't. The most important is our candidate they run under the PPC. So what they will do if they are appointed by Justin Trudeau, they will fight for what we believe. And these candidates will speak about the equalization, will try to debate and try to ask questions to other political parties for having a real national debate on these important issues for Alberta, but also for all Canadians.
Let's talk about the Maverick Party for a moment, Paul, because this was a party that was really the first electoral test of a Western independence-minded party in this recent generation of Western alienation. In the ridings in which the Mavericks ran candidates, 2.3% was the total, I believe, 2.30. Jason Kenney, a week or 2 weeks after the election, had extrapolated from that this really wasn't a huge thing anymore. And I know that obviously the reason people are here and watching it online is because that alienation is a real thing. But a lot of people would look at that and say, okay, you know, this is not really a movement that has legs. So how do you explain to prospective Wild Rose Independence Party voters that it's different now than it was for the Mavericks last month?
Well, there's several aspects of that. I think the first one is the frustration for Albertans to realize that, you know, that they ran 30 candidates. If all 30 were to be elected and go out east, would it make a difference? And I'll argue that actually, you know, back in the 80s and 90s, Preston Manning has the West wants in. And we sent a contingent out there and it got swallowed up once it formed government. It was, again, appease the East, try and make those inroads. And so I think for many Albertans, they looked at that and realized that, you know, what's the benefit of that vote and they couldn't see any. That even if we had 30 MPs that were out there voting no, what changes it, 308 to 30? Not good numbers. And so I just don't see they saw the viability of the party and the purpose compared to the bloc, in Quebec, where they have a major impact.
Well, let me turn that back to you, Maxime, because this is something that you've talked about in terms of the PPC growth, that you don't expect to be the prime minister of a majority government right away. You want to build and get a couple of seats here and there and move on. You are still going to be up against in the House of Commons that same dynamic you just spoke about in the Senate, which is this body being dominated by people that support big government, that represent have-not provinces. So how do you, even if you were to get a small group of PPC MPs, how do you shake up and disrupt this institution that you have said is morally and intellectually corrupt, to talk about the Conservatives specifically, but broader than that, the House of Commons, which a lot of Canadians will say isn't working for them?
Yeah, what we will use all the tools that we'll have being in Parliament to do this debate. We can have a parliamentary commission on the equalization formula and bring all these debate. What we are speaking, what I said during the election and our platform, it's too bad, but the mainstream media and all the other media, except the independent media, and I appreciate that you are covering us. And yes, you're right, Andrew. I was very pleased that you take time to follow me during the campaign, and you were the only one for sure. So that being said, we will use all the tools in Parliament, and there's parliamentary commission. We can have a parliamentary commission on the equalization. We can have a parliamentary commission on Western alienation, and bringing the debate and pushing the other political parties to have a position on it. The Conservative Party of Canada, the Liberals, they don't want to speak about equalization. They don't want to speak about important issues for Western Canada. So we will bring that debate in Ottawa and in the national media by using the tools like a parliamentary commission. We can do things and we'll have more visibility. So I think that will be the next step important for the growth of our party when we'll have candidates elected in Parliament.
Is the only party to have a definitive stance against vaccine passports and to speak out against vaccine mandates. And a lot of the people that I spoke to who were first-time PPC voters were certainly galvanized by that issue. It did a lot to bring out traditional non-voters, even some traditional left of center party voters, Green voters and whatnot. If in 2 to 3 years, when Canadians are going back to the polls again, Maxime, that's not an issue, and we knock on wood, 2 years to flatten the curve or something, you never know, but let's say the pandemic isn't a factor in the next election. How do you make sure that support that you had this time around isn't just a flash in the pan that was very specific to the circumstances of Canadian politics right now?
Yeah, you're right by saying a lot of people came to us because we were the only party that was speaking against, and we are still speaking against vaccine passport and all these mandates. So, but these people had an opportunity to look at our platform also on other subjects. So I believe that, I hope so, that in 3 years, we won't speak about that. I hope that we'll have gained back our freedoms. Maybe I'm wrong, but I hope. So if that subject is not there, we will speak about the inflation tax. We are the only one that speak about that during the campaign. I spoke about that, the inflation tax. We will speak about Western alienation. We will speak about changing the equalization formula. We will speak about healthcare reform. We have a lot of subjects, so we will try to focus on 4 policies like we did at the last election. And yes, at the last election, we focused a lot on the vaccine mandate and vaccine passport. So that was a focus, but also I had the opportunity to speak about other issues like the inflation tax. So I believe that we'll be able to grow. This party is not a one-issue political party. We have a comprehensive platform, and at the next election, we'll pick maybe 4 or 5 policies that we have and maybe promote these policies. And I believe that Western alienation will be a strong one. And I believe that, if Paul is right and they're the official opposition or they're in government, that would be important. And we are the only party that know that, and we are the only party that acknowledge that and have a solution for that. I think Paul may be not happy with our solution, because if our solution is adopted in Ottawa, that may be the end of the Independence Party in Alberta. But we'll see. We have a lot, that will be hard for us to convince every political party to share our platform on Western alienation. But we'll see. And I believe what Paul is doing, it's important also. Other Canadians must understand Western alienation. I'm the only one that speak about that when I have the opportunity on the mainstream radio station about Western alienation. People in Eastern Canada don't know that you are mad and tired of the status quo. So having that referendum, having Paul maybe in government, that will help to have a national discussion also. And maybe that national discussion won't go anywhere. Maybe it will go somewhere. So, but that's why, I'm not scared about Albertans voting for the Wild Rose Independent Party. That will bring that debate, because if we don't have that debate, we won't solve anything in this country. We need to have real debate on real, and we have the real solutions with these for all these questions.
Well, Paul, let's talk about the elephant in the room then that Maxime very diplomatically tiptoed around here, which is that the PPC's vision is that Canadian politics can be changed at the federal level. Your position, which you shared unequivocally a few moments ago, is that it can't. Is that Canada is the sinking ship and Alberta needs to get out. So one of you is right and one of you is wrong. Which is it? And why? And how do you tell a lot of the people who are part of that PPC movement outside of Alberta and even inside of Alberta that you don't think Canada can be saved?
Well, if Maxime would have got 5 or 6 individuals elected so they could be talking more to Canadians, it would have helped. But we're in an economic crisis, and the fact of the matter is that we're running out of time. If Wild Rose Independence Party fails in 2023 and Albertans choose to continue with the same old government, same old policies, the oversight of Ottawa, I don't see Alberta even being saved. And so it's a time factor. And again, 2023, it's a vote for freedom. It's a vote for Wild Rose, or a vote for Ottawa, and a vote for serfdom. And that's our message to Albertans. We've got to get out. But there's such thing as an amiable divorce. You don't have to be upset or anything else. We can go our way. And I still think an independent Alberta would be the best thing for Canada, because the enabler would be gone. And it's amazing how when the enabler is gone, individuals and corporations and stuff tune up and put their lives in order. But we'll see where it goes. I just think that we're going to be rushed to 2023 to survive, let alone to wait till the next federal election.
I'll let you respond to that, Maxime, and I'll add to the discussion there. Someone in the chat is mentioning that the PPC gaining power is going to be too slow a process. You might not have more than 4 to 5 years. So for Albertans, it might be a here and now problem, whereas you're talking about a longer term vision. So if you want to take on that and also Paul's thoughts, I know people would appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks, Andrew. We don't have a lot of time. I agree with you. I agree with Paul when he's saying, the economic situation is very bad. And I believe that it can be worse before being better. The economy, the inflation, the debts, and also the loss of our freedoms. So we are in a very bad situation right now. And we have the solution for all these challenges. But yes, for us, it's a midterm. I believe at the next election that maybe if we elect, if it's another minority government, and we have 10 or 5 candidates elected, and it's a minority government, maybe we can have the balance of power and we can accelerate these changes. I look in New Brunswick. There's the People Alliance over there at the provincial level, and at the last election, with 2 candidates, they had the balance of power. So I don't know what can happen, but I believe that the time is very short to do this reform. And that's why, I will be back on the road and to speak about that. It's a critical time for our country. I hope that the next election will be maybe in 2 years and 3 years and will grow a little bit faster, but step by step will be there. And you're right, maybe it would be too late. Maybe if Paul, has his majority and is doing his referendum, but I'm looking at the example in Quebec, the PQ, was the official opposition in 1970, become the government in 1976, and did their first referendum in 1982. So before having a referendum with a yes in Alberta, that can take maybe 10 years. And I believe that the PPC will be more influential in 4 or 10 and 10 years. So that's step by step would be there, but I don't control the agenda for the next election.
Paul was shaking his head, but we'll get back to that in a moment. I don't want to spend the remainder of our time together on one question, but we should do a Lincoln Douglas debate between Paul Hinman and Maxime Bernier sometime. That would be an American political. Two people got the reference. Thanks, Chris. Let's talk about the Alberta situation here, Paul, because I know that Jason Kenney is facing a lot of pushback from within his own party, from within the province as a whole. There's a reason that the party had to move up its leadership review to, I believe, April in Edmonton. And the thing is, for a lot of people, they would view that as being the referendum on Jason Kenney's leadership and an opportunity for Alberta Conservatives to get together, and if they're not happy with him, to get rid of him. But obviously, you've given up hope that the UCP is the vehicle that can advance this. But why is that? If there's an opportunity for the grassroots of the UCP to have their say, well, this is all fairly fresh, why are you not hopeful that that could perhaps turn the tide?
Well, I guess I'll go back and 2020 hindsight's great. And I remember when Jason first announced and came back, he was going to run for the leadership of the PC party. To me, that was a rat-infested, rotten ship that had sunk. And I criticized him for coming back wanting to save it. When he won the leadership, Brian Jean put on his dancing shoes and then lost to Jason. I was hoodwinked, and I thought, wow, here's a guy who loves politics, wants to be there, says all the right thing, and I got behind his leadership. He's betrayed us. The UPC government has betrayed Albertans. There's enough of them there. They could turn this around. It's obvious that they are the elephant in the room, and they're going to continue to hurt Alberta. They're more worried and loyal to Ottawa than they are to Alberta. There's so many cases where we can talk about it, whether it's the pipelines, whether it's the economy, taxation, and they've done nothing. Jason has not stood up to Ottawa. He didn't stand up for Alberta jobs. He hasn't stood up for our pipelines, and they've betrayed Albertans. And so it doesn't matter. It goes back to 2008 when it says that you can chop off the head of the beast, but the beast grows a new head, and it's just as ugly. And the UPC party is corrupt, and I just don't believe that you can save them. And why waste energy there? They won't take the proper steps to even be good government. They're not accountable. You need to have recall. You need to have citizens initiative referendum. You need to have balanced budgets. You need to change the whole taxation system. There's so many things that the Wild Rose has to offer on good government and fixing our healthcare and our education. Jason talked about a summer of repeal, and he didn't repeal anything. He just endorsed and adopted and accepted the NDP platform and where they were going, and he just slowed it down a bit. And so, no, the UCP have proven their colors. We've seen who they are and what they want to do. And Albertans need a party that are there for Albertans and not for Ottawa.
There was a trend in a lot of the remarks earlier today, which was that every speaker just progressively depressed the audience more than the speaker prior had. I thought I had set a low bar, and then everyone else behind me just, I barely made it onto the stage today. So I'm going to try to do things a bit differently here, because we've been hearing from two politicians who are both at the heads of parties, but also particular movements. And again, I don't speak up here as a partisan. I sit here as a journalist trying to understand more about these. But I want to ask both of you, and I'll start with you, Maxime. Where are you most hopeful, either about the country, about the conservative movement with a small c, about the PPC? Where are you most optimistic in as far as your imminent future?
I think it's the battle with the public opinion. I don't believe in climate change, but I believe that we can change the climate of the public opinion. And that's the most important. And I know that these traditional establishment politicians are doing politics by survey and polling. So I believe that would be successful to change the climate of the public opinion, because we have the common sense on our side. we have the logic on our side, and concerning COVID-19 hysteria, we have the science on our side. So the more we speak about what we believe, the more support we will have. And I think that can happen faster than people thought. If we have maybe 25% of the population in favor of changing the equalization formula, for example, these traditional politicians will look at it. They will only look at it if we are able to have a big chunk of the public opinion in our side, because they will want to have a solution and stay in power. So I'm optimistic that these changes will come when we'll have more people on our side. And I believe that Canadians are intelligent people. Now it's a little bit more difficult because of the fear about COVID-19, and people, the reason, they don't use their reason. Sorry about that. I don't want to insult anybody, but the fear was very efficient. And we must be able to have a debate about our freedoms, but also about the future of this country. And I believe that if it's going worse, if the inflation is going higher, and it will be 4%, people will look at new solution for the future of this country, and more people will look at new solution. And I believe that will help us, because these traditional politicians will start to realize that we must debate these questions and having real solution. So, that's why my job as a leader of the political party, I'm not in Ottawa, I don't have a seat, but I have time, and I have time to travel across the country and to speak to Canadians. And, the mainstream media is not following us, but when I'm traveling, I have maybe always good coverage with local newspaper and local radio station. So that's the fight that the PPC is doing. Try to have more people on our side and change the public opinion. And if we don't need to be 50% to win, maybe 30, 25% of the population that agree with some of our policies, these traditional politicians will look at it, and they will maybe engage in a discussion with us. So I'm optimistic that we will win that battle. The only challenge, it's the time. And that's why, for me, the time is very important. And that's why I'm looking forward to be back on the road, as soon as possible.
First past the post has a few downfalls, but one of the advantages, it's like that old metaphor about the guys out in the woods and the bear comes, and how fast you need to run, faster than the slowest person in the group. So I shudder to ask you the same question, Paul, because I've heard 5 or 6 sinking ship metaphors from you, but what gives you hope? What gives you optimism in the current climate?
Well, there's always a silver lining. The best thing is the pain that Albertans are suffering. We now have, a federal government that's back in there that's against Alberta. We have a premier who is against Alberta, oil and gas and agriculture and our freedoms. We have 2 of our big cities that are now against us. The pain is going to increase, and with the pain, Albertans are going to react and say, this is unacceptable. Human nature is that we will go down the road a long ways with that rock in our shoe, but when it gets so bad, we'll eventually stop and pull it out. And I'm optimistic. We have an incredible platform. We have the solutions for a prosperous and free nation. We have the resources, the people, the education. We have so much here in Alberta that we could give not only to our children and our grandchildren, but to offer to the world. Alberta can and will be that beacon of freedom, that beacon of prosperity. We just need good government. And why we want to go back to a dog to its vomit. These governments are not serving us any good, and the people are going to reject that, I believe. And that's our job, is to get out there, let them realize who we are, what we're offering them, because there's nothing better than peace and prosperity. That's what people want. That's what people enjoy. And that's what people in Alberta can have. They just need to vote for the Wild Rose Independence Party.
Well, if Paul's not successful in his bid to become premier, maybe Alberta's poet laureate, replete with dog vomit and sinking ship, and then freedom and hope and prosperity. All right. Well, I know Paul will be around if anyone wants to ask some questions. And I know Maxime Bernier has always made himself accessible as well. But it's been an absolute pleasure. Maxime from Beauce, thank you so much for joining.
I'm from Montreal.
Montreal. Okay. Well, thank you.
Beauce is behind
and Paul,
me.
thank you as well.
Thank you, Andrew, for coming out.
All right, everyone. Thank you.